Hi dudes, I'm Brooke, and this is Navy. Aww. And while we may look like we dabble in the dark arts, I'm in fact not a witch. Navy I can't speak for. Hey Navy, do you put hexes on me? While we often see witches in TV, movies, and books represented as scary beings that are putting curses on people and practicing like dark, spooky arts and things like that, Wicca and other witchcraft practices are legitimate, not spooky, not scary, and a lot of people who consider themselves witches have great intents and are just following their version of religion. Like I said at the top of the video, I myself don't practice witchcraft. I don't practice any religion at all. So I'm coming at this as an outsider who's done as much research as I can for the context of telling this story correctly. So to anybody who does practice witchcraft or anything similar, if I get anything wrong in this video, I apologize in advance. I did do my best research, but if I get anything wrong, please let me know in the comments. That being said, recently an interesting TikTok came across my For You page and I was immediately very intrigued by the story, as were 14.6 million other people. So if all of those people can come to this video and watch this video and subscribe to my channel, I would really appreciate that. I'll actually give you guys a second to press subscribe. It's right under the video title next to my name. Go ahead. Do it.
Do it.
And if you guys like the very cute necklaces that I'm wearing today, they're all from Vitali and you can shop them at the link below in my description and I'll pin it in the comments as well. The TikTok in question is by a woman named Grace McAllister who tells the story of going to a hair salon that's kind of infamous on TikTok and getting what she described as a curse put on her. We'll watch that whole video in just a second, and I have heard you guys loud and clear. I won't speed it up. Just because my attention span is fried to shit, I guess it doesn't mean all of you guys' are, although you might just have Subway Surfer on under my video, but either way, 1x speed it is. But before that, let me give you guys some more lore for context. So like I said, this was an infamous TikTok hair salon. So do you remember the hairstylist Jordan of J-Palm Hairdressing who went viral for asking their clients' consent to touch them before doing their hair? People online gave them a lot of shit for this because obviously getting touched is a necessary part of getting any hair service, so it's typically a given. But I do understand what they were trying to do. Here they are briefly explaining it.
I guess a lot of you aren't really getting it. I'm trying to teach you that it's okay to say no when somebody asks for consent. This type of comment or some version or question of this is usually on most of our posts. A lot of people talk about the consent thing. And since everybody keeps bringing it up, still, let's talk about it. When we have the consent conversation before something as silly as a haircut, where it's obvious touching is going to be involved, it makes it easier to have that talk in situations where things aren't so clear. If we normalize having the consent conversation in uncomplicated scenarios, then hopefully it would compel us to take pause in unclear situations to ask before we touch. Or more importantly, these obvious examples would hopefully empower somebody to confidently say no in situations where it matters the most. And nobody should be forced to do anything, including getting a haircut, when they feel uncomfortable.
Anyway, they went really viral for that practice when they would post their consultations a while back. Okay, so take that information and store it in your back pocket. Or if you're a woman and your pockets are too small to hold anything, store it in the handbag that you now have to carry. Fast forward to June 22nd, where Grace posts her story about her experience. This is the TikTok I first saw. She doesn't name J-Palm specifically in this TikTok, but people in the comments immediately asked if it was J-Palm based on her description, and she was quick to immediately confirm that yes, it was. Okay, so let's watch Grace's first video first.
Put your finger down if you went to get a haircut last year and instead maybe you got a voodoo curse put on you. I recorded this video so many times a year ago and I had drafts that I don't have anymore, but I never posted it because I was genuinely terrified because of the just stupid crazy shit that happened that I was like, if I talk about it, will they come after me? I don't know, but I'm gonna talk about it now because it's been a year and I just remembered that the drafts are gone and I want people to know but I won't say where it is unless you guys tell me that I should. But my parents told me at the time that like they could sue me for defamation if I say what happened. So please advise me.
I just immediately have to say her parents are fucking stupid for thinking that. Because it's not defamation if it's true. You can say your bad experience about something, or you can say something negative about somebody or something like that if it's true. So that's what defamation is. Not to shit on this person's parents, but it's funny.
So what happened is I've only ever had my hair cut by my mom in my kitchen, and I wanted to get a real haircut because my mom hasn't been a practicing cosmetologist in over like 2 decades. And so my friend sent me this business TikTok and was like, here's an all-inclusive place that seems really friendly and cool for a first haircut. And I was like, awesome, this place looks great. And they're very well known on TikTok and made fun of for certain thing that they do about their all-inclusiveness, okay? They cater specifically to the queer community. And I went and it was great. Like my first appointment was great. I was like, oh my gosh, wow, this is really cool. This is really cool. And then I get home and I look at it because when the haircut was finished, they just had me pay and leave. I like didn't really get a chance to like put my fingers through it and see if it was right.
I just want to say, obviously, I'm going to let her finish and I know the whole story. So just, you know, my commentary comes with the fact that I know the whole story. Also, if you are new here, I did used to be a hairstylist. I was only a practicing hairstylist for like 2 or 3 years, I think. I would have to do the math to figure out exactly how long, but I do have a cosmetology license. So I do know hair more than, you know, the next guy. So I do come at this as someone who took hair clients regularly. And immediately I do have a red flag of a possibly unpleasable or maybe annoying client in that her mom had been doing her hair for, you know, however long, and she hasn't gotten a real haircut, as she says, in so long. And that could lead to like not having the correct expectations or not knowing what to expect and not having experience with like a consultation and then seeing that consultation into an actual haircut can kind of lead to disappointment. Every time as a client you have a consultation with your hairstylist, you usually bring photos, most people do, and things like that. So I know a lot of clients can have an expectation that their hair is going to look exactly the same as their inspo pics or things, you know, of that nature. And expectations can kind of be like a joy killer because your hair is a different head of hair than the person whose inspo pic that is. And sometimes there's even like editing and stuff. Like for example, platinum blondes will often bring in an inspo pic and it's like been desaturated to shit and you look in the background and nothing has color and it's like, well, they don't even have that shade, you know? So that's kind of the main thing that could be an issue when you're going into a consultation, having not had your hair done professionally in so long. Just if I was the hairstylist, I would have a thought of like, oh gosh, I hope she doesn't think that because I'm a professional hairstylist who's actively practicing and has been actively practicing as opposed to her mom who hasn't practiced in 20 some years and is cutting her hair in her kitchen, that I'm gonna be able to work magic, you know? So immediately for me, if, you know, putting myself in the hairstylist shoes, that would be kind of like a pink flag, you know? Not so much like a red flag, but I would be like, okay, be on the lookout to make sure that we're super, super clear in the consultation because she's been getting her hair done at home and it's her mom. So if it's your mom, oftentimes you could probably say like, no, don't do that, you know, whereas to a hairstylist, you have to be a little more polite. You just met this person. That would be something I would look out for. As well as she also mentions here like, oh, I got my haircut and then I was like, you know, let's pay and get out. And I do understand if you're feeling like you were rushed out of the salon and not felt like you can take your time and you feel welcome. But I do also understand on the hairstylist perspective, like time is money, honestly, unfortunately, and you only have so long booked for that haircut. And if a person is like, in the mirror for, you know, 10 to 15 minutes or however long, you don't have time for that. And J-Palm Hairstyling, from what I could tell online, just has Jordan, the owner, working there. So it's not like there's a bunch of hairstylists that are taking clients. It's a single person's hair, you know, studio. So it's not like a big giant salon where you have a billion people coming in and out. It's a one client at a time situation. So it might be like, okay, we have someone coming up or someone waiting or something. So let's go get to that next person. And can that make you feel rushed as a client? Totally. totally get that. But I think Grace might be guilty here of looking back and like picking out, you know, things to be mad about because she's mad about something else. And these things aren't necessarily super big issues, you know, like, oh, they rushed me out. And it's like, well, you know, they probably had a client waiting. So not to negate whatever else she has to say.
And there were some things that were wrong about it. And so I messaged them and I was like, hey, can we get a touch up? And they were like, sure. And I go in and they spend like the entire time being like, I actually did this right. Like you're wrong, but we'll alter it for you.
Okay, I'm gonna talk more about that part in a second because Grace does have a follow-up video to this and she goes more into detail about what she considered wrong about the haircut. And just know that, in my opinion, I think the miscommunication here between Grace and Jordan, the hairstylist, is that Grace is saying, like, you did this wrong, as opposed to saying, like, I don't like the way this part turned out. And Jordan, I don't know, I wasn't there, but I would imagine if I were Jordan, I would have said, like, well, no, you asked for this and I gave you this, but it's okay, I'll fix it. It seems like that might be the conversations they were having just based off of what Grace is telling us. That seems to be kind of like the way those conversations went. So it does kind of seem like Grace was a very picky, like unpleasable client, to be honest. But again, I'll let her finish and I'll explain more about what I mean by saying that, you know, Jordan did something wrong when they didn't. So I'll explain that in a second. It's more with the second video that Grace posted. Also, keep in mind that Jordan doesn't have to give her what's effectively a second haircut. A touch-up or a trim or any of these things are just different ways to say haircut, you know? Like, it takes just as long as a haircut a lot of times, if not longer, when your client's unhappy and you need to fix something. So now Jordan's effectively having to give her 2 haircuts for the price of 1. So I think that's worth noting that that was inherently a kind thing to do that Jordan didn't need to do.
When I went back, the normal eclectic stuff that they had before, like all the picture frames and stuff up on the wall, was still there, but they had added some Halloween decorations. And when I asked them, hey, did you decorate for Halloween 5 months early? Because it was almost like a year ago today. It was like June 10th, July 10th, I think. And they were like, no. And that's all we talked about it.
Grace is gonna list all of the things that scared her and made her feel like she had a hex put on her. And I will do my best to explain from what I understand what each one of those things is.
But when I walked in the room, there was a giant sign that says, abandon hope, all ye who enter.
Okay, first she shows us the abandon all hope ye who enter sign. This is like the most famous quote from Dante's Inferno. It's not necessarily a real warning. Like, it's probably just that Jordan's a fan of Dante's Inferno, and a lot of people have signs that say that. I'm a spooky decor girl myself, so, you know. So if someone walked in and was like, did you decorate for Halloween? I'd be like, no. Also, she does kind of make it sound like the abandon all hope sign was added just for this appointment, and it was not. As you can see on J-Palm's YouTube videos, it's been up for a really long time in their salon, and it's like just part of the decor.
And there was a ring of salt around my chair, and there was salt in front of the mirror in front of me and on the countertop in front of me.
Okay, so the salt around the chair and on the countertop and things like that, I can completely understand how, you know, if you just walked into a hair salon expecting to get your hair cut, that would spook you if you didn't know anything about like Wicca or witchcraft or anything like that. I also, for the record, don't know Jordan's, you know, religious practices or practices in general surrounding any of this stuff. I'm just talking in general about what Grace is discussing in this video and like what that can represent. So I don't presume to know Jordan's, you know, religious practices or anything of the sort. But upon research, in Wicca, salt can be associated with purification, with protection, and with the earth element. And a salt circle specifically can be used as a means of a protective barrier from a number of things, one of those things being negative energy.
And there was a mirror behind me that had a giant pentagram covering the entirety of it. There was a pentagram on the floor in front of me, 3 pentagrams in the corner of the mirror in front of me.
The pentagram has long been misunderstood as some kind of evil symbol. The pentagram is a symbol of the 5 elements, and it's used in Wicca as protection, from what I understand.
And next to that line of salt on the countertop was some candles and voodoo doll looking things.
And then as far as the candles and what Grace calls a voodoo doll, we'll get into the voodoo thing in a second because someone does call Grace out for using that term when voodoo is a closed religion. From the research that I did, that figure looks more like a puppet, which is used in Wicca for a multitude of things. And again, this is all just me, doing my own research online. But from what I could tell, the fact that it's wrapped in a blue cloth and bound with what looks like natural fiber would lead one to believe that the intent of that puppet was for protection, health, or tranquility, although it depends what's inside of it.
There's also a skeleton. I think the skeleton may have been there during the first appointment. I think that might have just been part of their decor. But it ties in, so I really don't know.
And again, as with the abandon all hope sign, the skeleton is a part of their decor all the time. They even feature it in some Instagram reels and things like that. And you can see it in the background of some of their TikToks and some of their YouTube content as well. So no, that also was not put out just for Grace's follow-up appointment.
But the vibe when I walked into the fix appointment was just hate. It was just hate, and I felt so uncomfortable. And then halfway through the appointment, they left to go to the bathroom. Now, in the first appointment, they left to go to the bathroom as soon as I got there, which I thought was odd that they hadn't gone already. But I don't care. You do your thing. But the second appointment was 10 minutes long, so I don't know why they had to leave halfway through, except for the fact that when they left, the music switched from being like pop music or elevator music to the kind of music you would hear in a haunted house where it's like whisper chanting in a different language. Yeah, and then it went back to normal as soon as they came back in the room.
Listen, I don't want to reach, but I do think it's interesting language to consider like a different language spooky and then to say like it went back to normal, I'm probably reaching there because given the context of what she's saying, I understand what she means, but it is kind of a weird way to say that, I will say. Also, it's editing, Brooke, but I just realized, is it possible that when Jordan went to use the restroom, they played something on their phone and it was the music that Grace heard, and that music was like a TikTok or something, and it like auto-played because of the Bluetooth setup in the salon? I don't know, just something to think about.
And they were cutting my hair really quickly the whole time, and so quickly they snagged the scissors on my hair for a second and like pulled my hair really hard. And then when they finished, they literally go, "All right, you're done, you gotta go, I've got a client coming," and like walk me out the door and close it behind me.
Well, yeah, it's a touch-up appointment that they're doing for free. So like it makes sense that they would be quick in between probably two booked clients. Like you probably came in between two clients that were already booked. That's usually how people will book like a quick touch-up or something like that, where it's like you give them a quick 10 minutes and I'll quickly do it. The bathroom comment is funny because it just feels like out of touch to be like, I just got here and you're gonna go to the bathroom. Like, yeah, they probably had a client that just left right before you and they had to like get them situated. Now you're here. They're gonna quickly use the restroom and then help you out. Like, God forbid someone's a human being. So I do think that's kind of an interesting, like look into a teensy bit of entitlement, to be honest.
And I essentially immediately start bawling, and I call my friend and I'm like, what the fuck? And I call my dad and I'm like, I'm coming home. Like, I'm sorry it's taking so long, but I need to have a breakdown first. And it's weird because I didn't think that they weren't threatening me with like scissors or something like that, but they are holding scissors next to my face, and there's all this threatening stuff around and the threatening music. And I just felt very uncomfortable and unsafe the entire time that I was there for that second appointment. And I wanted to post a review somewhere about it and be like, hey, this place is not chill. But my parents told me that they could sue me for defamation, so I have not said anything about it, because if they are gonna put a voodoo hex on me or something, who's gonna stop them from doing normal crazy stuff? And I don't really believe in like hexes or anything like that, but that's not the point though. That's not the point. The point is that their intention is bad, and that scares me. So if you guys want to know where it was, or if you have any guesses on where it was, let me know. But yeah. Also, if you want to see the haircut, the haircut is not like the end of the world, but it was not at all what I was going for. And I was more crying because I was freaked the fuck out than that the haircut was terrible, which it was bad. It was very uneven and very, anyway. Let me know what you think.
Sounds like a lot of
Pearl clutching.
over a little,
Witchcraft.
right?
So there were people in Grace's comments bringing up the fact that she used voodoo when she should not have, and she did respond with this video where she also shows us the haircut and explains a little bit more about the story.
I want to clarify some things from my last video because it got a lot more attention than I was expecting, and I made a mistake when talking about it, and I'm sure there are other things that I can clarify, so I'm going to do that now. First of all, this is the mistake I made. I don't know anything about voodoo, hoodoo, witchcraft, hexes, spells, anything like that. I should not have been using terms that I do not even partially understand, so I apologize for probably putting that in a light that it did not deserve to be in. I simply meant to say that the objects that they had in the room that weren't there before and the music that they played that they did not play before reminded me of things that would either be Halloween decorations or things you would see in a Halloween movie where they're going to put a spell or something on somebody. I did not realize that the verbiage that I used was so specific to an actual thing. In my mind, it's just Halloween stuff. So I apologize for my ignorance on that subject. And thank you to this person for being so kind while educating me about these things that I clearly know nothing about. There were a lot of people that were less kind, so I very much appreciate this person. As for the objects themselves and the music, they do not actually scare me, bother me, upset me, offend me, whatever else. It was not the things in the music that actually bothered me. It was more the fact that in the first appointment that I had, the stylist was very friendly and very cordial and customer service attitude and all that. And in the second appointment, in my the follow-up, the touch-up appointment, I don't think they smiled a single time. They were very hostile. They didn't seem like they wanted me there at all. It was just a very hostile environment. And so when you add a bunch of items that I don't understand that are associated with Halloween type stuff, and add in getting a very upsetting haircut with a bunch of hostility on top of it, is just a very unsettling, uncomfortable experience. No hate against the objects or anything themselves. A lot of you wanted to know what the haircut actually was. This is what I walked in with. I had blow dried it or straightened it beforehand because I asked what to do and they said do whatever. But I showed them this so they know what my hair texture was, and this was the length. It went just below my butt crack. It was very, very long. It's just about as long as it was then. Now it took about a year to grow back out. What I had asked for was some little face framing pieces to come out when I put my hair up, and that when I put my hair back behind me, some pieces fall out over my shoulder like this does, which, by the way, I have since cut my own hair. I cut my own hair after that appointment, or after the touch-up appointment. So any video or picture that you have seen is not the haircut. And then I asked to get maybe 6 inches off the bottom max so that I got rid of some split ends. That is what I asked for, and these are the pictures that I had showed them.
Keep in mind, she does say 6 inches off the bottom max I asked for, just to get off some split ends. And then she goes like this when she says 6 inches. And she also mentions that it took a year for it to grow back to where it was. Everybody's hair grows at a slightly different rate, but overall, the average growth rate for hair is about a half an inch a month. So if it's been 12 months, it likely was 6 inches that was cut. I think she might be confused on inches, to be honest, because holding your hand up like this and saying 6 inches just to get rid of the split ends, 6 inches, that's like 3 inches. Hold on. This is 6 inches. So that's like, it's a chop. Like, that's a pretty good chop. And she had really, really long, like, beautiful hair. So I understand, like, a big chop might be just getting the split ends off, but just keeping that in mind.
At the appointment, at the end, they asked me if I wanted it in a blowout or styled normally, so I got a blowout to feel fancy. I didn't realize until I got home what the situation was, because when we finished with the blowout, we immediately went to pay and I left. I should have checked. I didn't know better. That was my bad. When I got home, I realized that the face framing pieces that I had gotten were very thick, to the point where I would consider them curtain bangs. They got very hostile with me about calling them curtain bangs and told me countless times that they are face framing pieces and we will make your face framing pieces blended more, but they are not curtain bangs. They were very very adamant about it.
It is very annoying, and I know I'm kind of dogpiling on Grace right now. I'll get to Jordan in a second, but it is very annoying when someone mansplains your profession to you, because those are not curtain bangs. They are face framing pieces. So a curtain bang is more like, think Sabrina Carpenter. She's got just bangs and then hair. What she just showed us is face framing pieces that might, granted, be thicker than she wanted and thicker than she asked for, totally granted, but face framing pieces nonetheless. And they then blend down into the layers, which is what makes them face framing pieces, because they're little pieces that are shorter than the rest, but then they continue to blend down in layers that frame the face. So I can understand why, if a client's already giving you a hard time and driving you crazy, and it's your salon that you own, and it doesn't matter if they come back because like you're the boss, if they're like insisting that they're called curtain bangs and you're the professional, I can understand why you'd be like, no, they're not. You know, I can understand how that's fucking annoying.
Oh yeah, so the face framing pieces were really thick. They were not cohesive with the rest of the hair or with the layers. The layers, I don't remember if they were uneven in the first appointment or not. But then the bottom, instead of being the same shape that it was before, it was a coffin shape. And instead of being just a coffin shape, it went like this, and then it went down a little bit, and then it went back.
Yeah, I can see how it does have kind of a disconnect there. That's valid.
I noticed all these things when I washed my hair and styled it naturally, and that's when I was like, okay, I actually do want to get the touch up. Now, it's not a terrible cut, okay? It's just not at all what I had asked for or what I wanted. So this is not a bad haircut necessarily. It's just not what I asked for. So I went back in, and like I said, the whole attitude was different. They had added these things that I don't know anything about. And they did not smile the entire time. They were very hostile. They just seemed like they were upset with me and they didn't want me to be there. Which, if I did something to upset them, I really don't know. I thought that I was being just a nice, normal person. And I keep licking my lips because I ate a shit ton of tortilla chips. I thought I should put that out there. I'm trying really hard not to. What was I saying? Okay, so that touch-up appointment was very hostile. I asked them, hey, is this Halloween decorations you put out early? And they said no, and kept doing their thing. They didn't seem like they wanted to talk about it, so I didn't ask anymore. A lot of people were like, you should have left when you first saw that stuff. I'm afraid to be rude, and I wasn't bothered by the stuff. I was like, maybe they're in a bad mood and things are gonna get better. I don't know. The appointment, they were cutting my hair very haphazardly. It was very fast. It felt very random. They ended up cutting off at least 6 more inches off my hair. So instead of 6 inches, I lost like a foot, maybe a foot and a half.
Okay, first of all, you don't know what's haphazard for someone or just quick. And if you are someone who cuts hair all day, every day, you can work really quickly. And doing especially layers, it does look haphazard. Like when you're doing long hair layers, a lot of the times like you pull it up and then it's like it looks really haphazard, but there's a method to the madness. So again, I take issue with Grace's like tone of knowing about hair when she doesn't seem to, and calling things like that into question when her biggest issue is just she didn't like her haircut. That's fine. You haven't gotten a haircut outside of your kitchen in years, you said. So, you know, people cut hair differently, and that's a pretty typical way to cut hair, is really quickly layer like that. Looking at this photo that she shows and claiming it's a foot and a half is crazy work. I'd give her maybe tops 8 inches. And is that more than she asked for off? Yes, totally. But again, it feels like she has valid criticisms and valid concerns, but we're just like really exaggerating and really dogpiling about something that's like, well, that's not.
Oh, that's no. In the sense that, no. You know what I mean? Like, when
You know, like, this is a man's 12 and a half inches, if you know what I mean. And again, back to hair growth. You're not growing 12 and a half inches in a year. That's crazy. So it likely was closer to like 6 to 8 inches that was cut, which again, if it was more than 6 inches, that is more than she asked for. But this isn't 12 to 18 inches off.
And it ended up being way choppier than it was before. The blending was a little bit better, but it became closer to the haircut that I wanted, but less of a good haircut. It was not good, and they practically held my hand and dragged me out the door. That's an exaggeration. They ushered me to the door and closed it immediately behind my back, where I then started bawling like a child. But this is what it looked like afterwards. I don't know if I'm going to put in a video or pictures or something, but it was not great. I ended up straightening it later.
I want to know, she does say that she had blow dried it straight before she went in, but I want to know if it was a wet or a dry cut, and I want to know if it was a wet cut, that would make it like a curly wet cut because she does have like a curl pattern. But because she does have curly hair, when you're cutting curly hair, it's always gonna look a little bit different when it's straightened. So like if you wear your hair curly 24/7 and like every once in a while you straighten it, but like 90% of the time it's curly, usually it would be advised that you get a curly haircut because, you know, you cut it as it's gonna be worn so that you don't end up like cutting it while it's straight and then the coils make it uneven when they set in, if that makes sense. So your curl pattern can kind of make it look uneven when it's not, if it was cut straight when it's straight. Whereas if it was cut when it's curly and it's like a straight, perfect, you know, line or whatever, when it's curly and it's all even and nice, and then you straighten it, then it's gonna look uneven because again, your curl pattern isn't exactly perfect and it's gonna have, you know, differences. So I would like to know if it was a wet or a dry cut for that reason, because a wet cut in her case would be a curly type of cut, and a dry cut, she did say she came in with straightened to a degree hair.
Well, oh, people ask me if bad things happen to me afterwards. I don't really believe in this stuff or any stuff specifically, so I don't associate anything, but I did almost get in a car accident when someone cut me off in traffic, and then I went home, straightened my hair, and burned my hand on the iron. But I think that those are unrelated, and even if they are related, they're really small, so I'm fine. But I straightened my hair, and it looked worse than I had thought that it did. Once again, it could have been so much worse, but I lost a lot more hair than I intended, and it wasn't a good haircut in general, and it just wasn't, it was not the service that I was supposed to receive, in my opinion. So that's really all I have to say about it. I ended up going home, having my mom try and help me. She couldn't fix it, so she couldn't fix it as much as it should have been, so I ended up fixing it myself, and have since been cutting my hair by myself. So any video or picture you've seen of me has not been that haircut. This is what it's been. If there are any more questions or things that I need to clarify, I'm sure they will be in the comments. Let me know. I also want to say, this is not supposed to be like a hate on this establishment. I just had a very bad experience there, and this is my story about it. And yeah, hopefully everybody else has had a great experience. Oh, they never asked me, by the way, they never asked me my pronouns or consent to touch me, which I thought was really strange because it's in like all of their videos. It didn't bother me though, because you can call me whatever you can. I went in to get a haircut, so I really don't care. Yeah, that's it.
So yeah, I do think that I understand not liking your haircut. I understand being disappointed with your haircut. I just think her criticisms of the haircut breach on thinking she knows more about hair than she does, and that bothers me. But that's not to say that she can't be disappointed by her haircut. And now to J-Palm, because I know I haven't said anything about their part in this at all yet, and it might seem like I'm just like glazing them. I'm not. While my research led me to believe that everything that was in her video in the salon that day was either usually there, like the decor, or the things that were specifically added that day were healing related, or like protection from negative energy, I still don't think it's appropriate to put any religion in a service industry like that. Unless you explicitly like let clients know ahead of time that that's gonna be part of it. It would really bother me if I sat down for a haircut and my hairdresser started praying over me. That would really fucking bother me. And what's ironic is that Jordan rose to kind of TikTok infamy for asking for consent before touching any of their clients in the consultations and in the appointments, but they didn't ask Grace's consent to be a part of a religious situation that clearly made her very uncomfortable. So while I do think a lot of Grace's discomfort comes from the fact that she doesn't know what all of these things were for and assumed the worst because of the way it's portrayed in media, it doesn't change the fact that you shouldn't be putting your religion on people like that. But I will say, you have to be a really negative fucking client for them to put a salt circle around you to protect themselves from your negative energy. And of course, because TikTok is the way it is, people chose a side and attacked the other side. And given that people already would make fun of Jordan for the consent thing, it made them an easy target to kind of get really made fun of for this too. So now Jordan's comments are full of people making jokes about them being a witch and asking if they're gonna address it and saying that like they're a terrible person for putting a hex on this poor girl and like kind of crazy things. Also, aside from just like the comments about like, oh my gosh, you're a witch or whatever, people were also attacking Jordan's appearance and like mannerisms in their comments and basically saying like, oh, nothing behind those eyes. You can tell that like they're crazy because of the way they smile, and like wild accusations like that.
Hair today. Such a good question. I've been growing it out forever, and I've really only ever gone in and just said, I want to keep growing it and have some layers. But that's all it's ever been as long. So some sort of style, I'm not opposed to like losing some length. Something that leans a little bit more feminine would be lovely. I kind of have a couple.
And can I just say, like, first of all, they are filming. So they're filming, they know that they're being filmed because they started the filming, and also they have their like customer service face on. So if you're someone who's worked in customer service, you already have a layer of like fakeness about you, and then to add on the fact that you're being filmed, it's like, yeah, of course you're gonna present as like, you know, like you're gonna have an air of like fakeness because you're in your customer service job and you're also being filmed. And also, everybody in their comments all the time, even before this, judges every single thing they do, always. So I'm sure that there is an air of like, okay, like just masking their nervousness about like, if I fuck up at all or do anything weird, everybody in my fucking comment section is gonna completely crucify me for it. So let's lay off commenting on the way that people like are. And people have even gone as far as leaving 1-star reviews on their Google reviews for their hair salon. Like, for example, this person says, "This is a warning rather than a review. Hair isn't the only thing they practice here. Stay safe and consider a new hair place." You can't make a review of somewhere you haven't been. That's fucked up. And then this person says, "After asking for a minor touch-up, my hairdresser was extremely disrespectful and essentially pushed me out the door upon completion. Just go somewhere else. The attitude is not worth it." And then this person said, "Is it normal to come back in to fix a haircut and have this on a mirror after? Was not there before appointment. Also had this sign all over top of hairdressing mirror and salt around chair." And presumably they had attached photos that weren't like approved by Google to be posted or whatever, because there was no photo attached. Those are just a few, but there are countless reviews on JPalm Hairdressing's Google page just like shitting on them for something that these people weren't there for. Also worth noting that people are in Jordan's comments being like, "Jesus Christ, guide me and I rebuke this. Please protect me from this energy. Amen." And it's like, you clicked on the profile. Like, no one's making you watch the video. If you think you're gonna get a demon from the video, like, don't watch it. So given all the backlash that JPalm was getting, Grace makes another video telling people to stop harassing Jordan, and she even has in her bio now something along the lines of like, "Stop harassing JPalm," or something like that.
I'm seeing that there are a lot of people who came from my comments and went to JPalm's comments and posted things like "Justice for Grace," or "a hamster with a cross," or "a person in a witch costume." And as much as I appreciate the Justice for Grace thing, it's been a year. I'm fine. You know, I had a bad experience, but I don't believe in an eye for an eye. I don't think that just because I had a bad experience, they should have a bad experience. So if they want to talk about it, they can say something about it. Other than that, let's just leave them alone. And as for the pictures and the let's not do that. You know, it seems funny at first because you're like, "Oh my gosh, that's a silly little picture." But having someone in your comments posting a bunch of silly little pictures making fun of you and calling you things that may or may not be accurate and saying all sorts of, it's bullying, harassment, perhaps. I'm not sure, but either way, if I were them, I would not appreciate it in my comments. So if we could lay off, that would be great. Let's try and be kind in both comment sections, perhaps. Speaking of which, there are some people saying that my apology was insincere because they've seen me liking comments that are saying that I didn't need to apologize. As for that, my apology was sincere. I promise. I didn't realize that voodoo and other things was a legitimate religion. I have only seen Halloween movies. I don't know anything about these religions. I didn't know. My apology is sincere, I promise. That said, I am liking comments that are saying things about, "You didn't know any better. I understand that was not your intention." A lot of these comments are also saying that I didn't need to apologize because of that, but the reason I'm liking the comment is because I appreciate the fact that they're being kind towards my ignorance. Whereas other people are just saying that I'm ignorant and therefore a racist or a bigot. I appreciate that they're understanding enough to know that I'm not a racist or a bigot, I'm just stupid and trying to learn. So, that's all I have to say on that. In the end, let's just try and be more understanding and nice to both me and to J Palm, because I don't know what's going on. I don't know. Let's just, you know, the whole be kind movement is there for a reason. It's a very simple thing to do. Let's try it.
And I do think it's kind of rich to get online being like, you guys, why are you all being so mean to this person that I told you did this horrible thing to me? Come on, it's TikTok. You know that if you post a story that's sensational like this and it gains traction, that everybody that agrees with you is gonna go dog shit on that person. And it's just really ignorant to be like, oh, I'll just post my thing. And then, you know, people will understand my side of the story and feel bad for me, but nobody will go attack that person. So I think it's a little bit disingenuous to be like, why are you guys harassing them? Be nice. We can both have our views, you know? That's not the way the internet works, so I think it's a little bit like, what did you expect? Like, don't play dumb. People did have a lot to say about this, so here are some of the TikToks that, like, other creators were making about the situation.
Who they think they are? I've given the best years of my life to this place and they think they can just fire me like that? Like trash? I don't think so.
That one's my favorite. That's really funny.
There's no way in hell this is $5 million. Well, fuck me in the ass, this is $5 million.
I really want that hairdresser J-Palm to respond to all these witchcraft comments. Some girl posted a video about an experience that she had with this really popular hairstylist creator. And I love her videos. Her consultations are like amazing. And some people make fun of her because she like goes way in depth with these consultations, but it's good. Like everyone should do that. Because by the end of it, it's very clear that both of them are on the same page. Which is why if this girl who made this video saying that she didn't like her hair after she got home and asked her to redo it, and then when she went in to redo it, there was all this like witchcraft stuff, like salt around the chair, pentagram, Halloween-y type music, and she was like, I think she put a hex on me, but I don't think she put a hex. And so people said like, well, maybe she does believe in witchcraft, but she was just like protecting herself. And like maybe, or maybe she just thought it was funny. Maybe this girl was being like overly dramatic and like crazy about her hair. You know, just one of those, if you've ever worked in customer service, just like one of those people who is never gonna be happy. And I don't know, I wasn't there. That's just another theory. Or maybe it had nothing to do with her. Like who knows, but I would really like her to respond. I don't know, just to get her take on it.
Worth noting that Jordan uses they, them pronouns. I don't think that guy knew. That is another fair point that, like, all of that stuff could have had nothing to do with Grace. Like, they had a client coming in right after Grace, so, like, what do you think? They, like, swept it all up and got rid of everything that quickly? Like, maybe they just had a thing going on that day that was, you know, I don't know if there was, like, a full moon or what. I don't know enough about, you know, witchcraft to know if there's like a special day where you do certain things. Do I still think it should be kept out of like a customer service environment unless it's specifically like consented to ahead of time? But it's interesting. People are mad that Jordan isn't responding, but I don't blame them because like they can't say anything that would win. You know, if they say, yes, I practice witchcraft, everybody's gonna freak out about that. If they say, no, I don't, this is a misunderstanding, nobody's gonna believe them. There's no winning. So I don't really know if it's worth it to respond at this point. Kind of just keeps people coming back to their page to check to see if there is a response, I guess. But let me know what you guys think in the comments. I probably will always lean a little bit on the hairstylist side in any story that's like hairstylist versus client. But I do want to know what everybody thinks. So also, like I said, if you practice witchcraft in any capacity and you know more about these items that were shown in that video, then I said, obviously, let me know. I would love to know more about, you know, these practices and what they could have represented in this scenario. All right, guys, I'm gonna call it right there. Don't forget to follow me on TikTok and Instagram. Let's be friends. And if you want to support me even further and get some behind the scenes polls and even more like exclusive content, I also have a Patreon. So check out that community. We have a fun little Discord going and I'm planning on some live streams to do on the Patreon as well. And you guys always comment asking for what lip color I'm wearing. Guys, it will always be in the description for you, every single time. Even if it's like not linkable to a product that's available, like if it's out of stock or something, I'll let you know what it is in the description, I promise. All right, thank you guys if you made it this far. Don't forget to murder the subscribe button and beat the shit out of the like button. And if you're feeling crazy, you can put a hex on the bell. And I'll see you next time with another video.
We will shrink ourselves to make other people comfortable, often at our own expense. And for what? Not being yourself rarely accomplishes anything positive in your best interest. You do not have to set yourself on fire to keep other people warm, sweetie. You deserve to know what it feels like to be 100% fully, largely your authentic self, whatever that looks like and whatever size that comes in.